What is up, everybody? Welcome to Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. Back for another episode of Golf Talk here on RotoGrinders. Happy to have you joining us. I'm happy to be feeling better. Been pretty ill the last week, so finally starting to feel a little bit back to normal, and that's cause for celebration. For me alone here, I am Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84. I've got Derek Farnsworth, a.k.a. Notorious, alongside me. Always feels like forever when we have a break from PGA, even if just for a week. Had the President's Cup last week, won by the much stronger American side. And yeah, it looked like it was going to be a runaway. Internationals made it close there in the middle rounds, but U.S. ended up pulling out a victory. Noto, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. I don't think the President's Cup gets enough credit. I mean, I had a blast watching it. I had a lot of juice to it, a lot of energy from both sides. I thought the crowd was amazing. And, we ended up getting a fairly competitive match. At least, the internationals had a shot on Sunday. We had some superstars kind of break out in Tom Kim, and, Jordan Spieth looked great. So Max Homa going 4-0 was pretty impressive. So, yeah, I thought it was great. And sorry you're not feeling good. Is it? Does that have anything to do with the fact that the kids are back at school? Because my little one's already been two different sicknesses.
Yes, it does. Home. And you know what? I've said this not on the air, but I'm kind of in the middle ground on the whole mask debate when we went through COVID and started coming out of COVID. If somebody wants me to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. If people don't, I won't. Whatever. I do not have a strong opinion on it one way or the other. I'll do whatever makes everybody else feel comfortable. But when our kids went to school for 2 years with masks on, they both had perfect attendance. They never got sick. Our kids were the healthiest they've been for 2 years during COVID because they had to wear masks at school. They didn't bring anything home. Nobody got sick, and it was glorious. Now they're back in school, and nobody's wearing a mask, and everybody's getting sick. So, I think I got it from our oldest. But then with me, it was a cold that morphed into bronchitis. I lost my voice, and then it morphed into a sinus infection, and it was just a whole ordeal here for the last week. And I'm just happy to not be coughing every 2 minutes now. So can't complain. I haven't been sick in a long time, and it wasn't COVID. So I guess I can be thankful. But yes, the kids back in school, that is a thing.
Well, I'm glad you're back on the mend and ready for a major like week this week for the Sanderson Farms.
Absolutely. Always feels good after a week off from a normal tournament. You always feel more excited than you would, if this was the week after the U.S. Open or something with this kind of field. We'd be talking about, scaling back and looking forward to the next big event. But this is kind of what the fall swing is, and this schedule is going to change significantly next year. So you're not going to see a bunch of strong fields here the next few weeks, but we do have 144 golfers assembled for the Sanderson Farms. You mentioned the President's Cup not getting the love that it deserves. I don't think the TV coverage does it any favors. You've got 5 matches going on or whatever during the 4 days, 4 matches or 5 matches. And there's one match that they don't show a single shot of for like an hour and a half. Like, what are you doing? There's only 8 guys on the course or 10 guys on the course. Like, it's not that hard to show golf shots. And instead, I can't remember whether it was like the Connors Pendrith match against Finau and Homer or somebody. I can't remember exactly, but they showed more like replays of past President's Cup winning matches than they showed shots of that match. I don't know. It just feels like it's a prime opportunity to get tons of golf shots and kind of whip around coverage, but they don't do that. They just don't do it the way they should.
Yeah, a lot of fluff on the broadcast. And, they have the playthrough, which is kind of nice other than, the golf gets a really small box on the TV. But, man, they miss so many big moments when they cut to actual commercials. And then, it just seemed like the broadcast wasn't great, to your point. But the play on the course I thought was pretty good. And, I mean, the internationals, they put up a pretty big fight. I think this was the best either Europe or the internationals have done against America on U.S. soil since 1998, I want to say, something like that. So, it was a good event. I love Quail Hollow, and, looking forward to next year's Ryder Cup.
Yeah, Quail Hollow has kind of become that major championship type venue. They've really revamped that over the years and made that into a course suitable for major championships and tournaments, events like this one. And you mentioned it. The Internationals put up a fight. Looked like it was going to be a runaway, 10-4 after the third round. But they actually had a fighting chance heading into the singles. Just couldn't pull off enough upsets there against the stronger American squad. And pretty good weeks for most of the Americans, not named Sam Burns and Scotty Scheffler, who were terrible. Everyone else was pretty good.
Burns played well.
True. I guess Burns being paired with Scheffler. Scheffler was the main kind of guy that brought them down when they played together. And then Burns halved his singles match. Scheffler lost his singles match as well. Just was a really bad week for him. He wasn't great at the Tour Championship either. Like, I know he's not playing this week, but we always get done with these fairly quick with weak fields. So what do you make of Scheffler? Concerned or just a rough patch?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, given the fact that he played so well at the Ryder Cup, that kind of boosted his season last year, and now really struggled at the Tour Championship. I mean, that final round was pretty bad and just carried over. So he's one of those guys that, not a lot of tactician in his golf swing. It's kind of more of a feel golf swing, and it's all over the place, and he kind of, lines everything up and makes it work. But maybe he'll get it going. Maybe he'll go back to just being, not the number one golfer in the world, which is probably what you expect from most golfers.
If you are watching us live on YouTube or even on replay, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Always tons of content coming your way here at RotoGrinders pretty much every day of the week here. As we wind down baseball season, we hit the middle of NFL season here, and just lots of stuff coming your way. College football, college hoops will be starting up pretty soon. NBA isn't too far around the corner. I saw preseason hockey going on the other night, so it's just a busy time of year. You can subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell and be notified anytime we go live with shows like this one. So we'll be focusing on the golf tournament tonight, the Sanderson Farms Championship. If you go back more than 3 years, this was a tournament that always was held like alongside a major or alongside a WGC event for guys who maybe didn't qualify for those big tournaments. The last 3 years now, this is the third year, it's been held as a standalone event. It still doesn't get the strongest fields, but it does get stronger fields than what you would have seen 3+ years ago. And is always a tournament that is usually pretty friendly to scoring. So getting all your guys through the cut is going to be important this week. And it's not expected to be any sort of bad weather. So we should see, 20+ under par probably winning this golf tournament. So what do you make of the course this week?
Yeah, to your point, I do think it will be a birdie fest. The last 5 winners have at least been 18 under par. You mentioned the weather. Doesn't look like the wind is going to be a factor pretty much whatsoever. So I do think it's going to be very low scoring. It's routinely one of the 10 easiest courses on tour anyway. So yeah, birdies galore. You want guys that can putt because these greens are going to be very easy to hit, about 73% on average over the last few years. And oftentimes when that happens, it turns into a putting contest. So if you do want to contend, you're going to have to make birdies. I know we've seen a couple bad putters win here in Sergio and Cam Champ, but they both putted really well when they did win. So you're going to have to putt well to be in contention. There are 4 par 5s. They do play fairly difficult compared to tour average. So if you can take advantage of those, it's going to be a big edge on the field. And then I was looking at Data Golf's course fit tool, and driving distance, really big impact this week, which is a little interesting given the fact that the fairways are really narrow. They're pretty tough to hit. They're tree lined. So maybe it's just the fact that the rough is not that penal. One of the lowest missed fairway penalties on the PGA Tour. So yeah, looking at bombers, putters, good iron players, basically just birdie makers, and a lot of the guys coming out the Korn Ferry Tour. I think birdies kind of translate no matter where you play.
Yeah, you just want guys that are hitting it well and going to make birdies. I'm not quite as on board with the distance angle. I know the data shows it, but I think it's just a bit of a wild card. Like, guys are coming out and making whoever makes the most putts is probably going to win. And you look at some of the past winners here, like in 2017, Ryan Armour won. He's probably at the bottom of the tournament or the PGA Tour in distance. And then the following year, Cameron Champ won, who is near the top in distance. Then you have Munoz, who hits it pretty good. Garcia, kind of about average, and then Sam Burns, who hits it pretty good. And you go all the way back to 2011. Chris Kirk, who has had a resurgence here the past year or two, is a past winner here as well. So basically, whoever gets hot with the putter, giving themselves plenty of scoring chances, those are going to be the guys that rise to the top of the leaderboard. And you look at the winning scores since 2013, 20 under, 16 under, 18 under, 20 under, 19 under, 21 under, 18 under, 19 under, 22 under. So every year, a birdie fest. And, you're probably not going to win a GPP with a 5 out of 6 lineup this week because the course is not going to play difficult. So with that in mind, we can probably start breaking it down. Anything else you want to pass along before we get rolling?
Nope, ready to roll.
All right, let's do it. We've got a few golfers at the top this week. Sebastian Munoz has withdrawn. He is the only player as of the time that we are recording this that has exited the field that was in it at the time salaries were posted. So make sure you're not rostering Sebastian Munoz. We've got a fairly soft salary cap at the top this week. Only 4 with Munoz out, only 4 golfers above 10K. That's Burns, Theegala, Poston, and Henley. And you're probably going to see a lot of ownership go to those top 2 guys simply because there aren't a lot of top guys to spend on in this field. So what do you make of that ownership, and how are you handling Burns, Theegala, Poston, and Henley this week?
Yeah, so this could be a take that comes back to burn me, but I am going to be fading Sam Burns. Look, the President's Cup, those events just take so much out of you. I don't know if you're watching the singles matches, but I mean, Corey Connors was literally shaking. He couldn't put his ball down when he was trying to putt on like the 17th hole on Sunday. Xander Schauffele, when they interviewed him after he made, the match-winning putt, he was just so defeated and just like couldn't. I don't know. It takes so much out of you. Plus, I'm sure they partied real hard on Sunday, and then he also has the obligations of being the defending champ and everything that comes with that. So he can come out and win this thing. He's by far the most talented golfer in the field. I'm not gonna debate on that, but I like the guys a little bit below him. I like JT Poston. It's kind of my favorite play above 10K. He's been awesome over the last 3 months. I think he has a win, a second, and 4 other top 25 finishes. He's got 2 top 15s here. And the big difference for him the last year of play is his ball striking. He used to be a short game specialist. All of a sudden, he's, a really good total driver of the ball. And his irons have just really come to life. So JT Poston's going to be my favorite guy up here. Henley's the guy that always pops in my model. I don't mind him, especially on Bermuda, but not a guy I'm heavy on. And then Theegala, I don't know what he does well. I do think he's going to get that first win here soon, but he just feels a little overpriced to me.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of the field, it's tough. I might, the angle with the President's Cup taking a lot out of you, and maybe on the other side, you can just come out and relax and play a tournament that, you're obviously comfortable at, you won at, you're the best golfer in the field. You look at our projections, we've got him like 10 points above anyone else. I think I got to be in on Burns here. I can understand underweight stance on Theegala. I like, if they're going to be significantly higher owned than Poston and Henley, certainly okay with the pivot to those guys. But I think I might be, 60, 70% Burns, get overweight. Probably not a spot where if you're making 100 lineups, you want to go even with the field. I think taking a bold stance either against him or for him, there's pretty good arguments either way, I think is the way to go in GPPs. He's definitely volatile, but I think he'll bounce back nicely this week. All right, let's go ahead.
Your take is the more rational take for sure.
What's that?
So your take is the more rational take on Burns.
I don't know about that. I'll let you know on Friday night if it's rational or not. All right.
I'm paying 10-2 for Poston, and Burns is only 500 more. So it'll one of us will have a good week.
All right, there. Oh, so if we move down, you can see our producer Devin is helping run the screen share with the lineup HQ. So we do still have Munoz in the projections right now. We'll get him out of there. Obviously, the ownership shows at 0.3%, and he's there at 9,700. I was thinking he was over 10K, but he's at 9,700. But again, Munoz has withdrawn, so make sure you can click the X button on him and not have him end up in your lineups. So we go to this 9K range. Denny McCarthy, still a little weird to see him at 9,900. But Taylor Montgomery was one of the new PGA Tour card holders that we talked about a couple weeks ago for the Fortinet Championship. We talked about Justin Suh and Taylor Montgomery as two of our favorites. They had polar opposite performances in that first tournament of the new season. Montgomery tied for third, though a lot of it was with the putter. He led the field in putting in that tournament, but we said, hey, putters can play at this tournament if they're making a lot of birdies. You've got Scott Stallings, who's been playing pretty well. You've got Grillo, who's been playing pretty well. You've got Keegan Bradley, who's got some upside here in this field. What are your thoughts on some of these 9K guys?
Yeah, I'll go right back to Montgomery. You mentioned the putter being hot the last time we saw him, but that's kind of what he's good at. He's one of the better putters in the field, and we want guys that make birdies. You look at the Korn Ferry Tour birdie average last season, he was first. He was also first in scoring average on the Korn Ferry Tour last season. And last 10 events, including the Fortinet, he's got 8 top 10s. So a guy that's in great form, a guy that's going to make a lot of putts. I think he makes a lot of sense at 9,600. It does look like he's going to be popular. And then I don't know what to do with McCarthy and Bezuidenhout. They have almost identical stats across the board, and I typically like them a little bit more on par 70s that are like 7,000, but they can both really putt the rock. And Bezuidenhout played pretty good at the President's Cup. He didn't have to play 4 or 5 matches. I think he only played 3. So I don't know what to do with those two. I do like Stallings, just a guy that played so well down the stretch last season. I'm always on board with Keegan, although he's probably more of a cash game guy that isn't going to putt well enough to get you a win, but he might putt well enough to get you a top 20 due to his ball striking. And on the same board, Grillo. I mean, you have guys with identical skill sets in Grillo, Bradley, and then Bezuidenhout, McCarthy. Which 2v2 do you prefer?
What was my choices again?
So you got Bezuidenhout and McCarthy, who are the short game guys that red hot with the putter, and then you got Keegan and Grillo.
Oh man,
ball striker.
I don't know. I can't play Grillo at that ownership. Give me option C. Give me Keegan and give me Keegan and Montgomery. I'll play those two together.
Okay.
I do like Keegan. I wrote him up in my GPP piece at RotoGrinders. You can see I got the orange tag on him. He does have a top 5 finish here. Missed the cut last year, I believe. But he has played this event every year since it became its own stop and not an alternate field event. But I don't know. These volatile guys with iffy putters, like I don't love playing them when they're super chalk, but I'm okay with Keegan at 10%. And Keegan's putter, to his credit's come around. I think he's 40-somethingth in this field over the last 36 rounds. So that's, if he's there, that'll play for sure better than being near the bottom. Any other thoughts on this range? Or Riley? I think I remember seeing in the survey that you're out on him.
I mean, you have to fill out the survey, and he was just an odd man out for me. No issue with him. He's probably my least favorite above 9K. But yeah, to your point, to Keegan's putting, Grillo's been the same. All of a sudden, he's a top 35 putter too.
We'll see which one of them reverts to true form or if it's a real thing for both of them going forward. All right. Anything else on the 9Ks? You got to take on Stallings. Did I miss that?
I think he's fine. Just such good form towards the end of last year, and he was making so many birdies. He really struggled at the Tour Championship, but coming off of the week before when he almost won, got outdueled by Patrick Cantlay, that's kind of was to be expected. So I do like him this week. Yeah,
it's probably a little bit. He was kind of playing with house money there by the time he got to the Tour Championship. Made it in on the strength of a really good finish, the second playoff event. So the price tag is a bit of sticker shock. I think I like Keegan a little better. Maybe Bezuidenhout a little better, but no problem with Stallings, especially in GPP formats. All right, as we head into the 8K range, plenty of options. If we go kind of the mid to upper part, Harris English at 8,600. This is kind of the type of course where he's maybe had a little bit of a resurgence. Again, he feels overpriced. He's not going to project super well there. I know we both like Detry a little bit. You've got Straka, you've got Taylor Moore in here, and Adam Hadwin comprising the upper part of the 8K range. What do you like in there?
Yeah, I'll start with Detry. He's known as the Belgian Bomber, so if you are playing the Bomber narrative, I think that makes some sense. And he's been great over in Europe. He just hasn't shown a ton on this side of the pond, but coming off of 5th and a 12th I think he's a good tournament play, especially if he's going to be on the 14% ownership. I like Taylor Moore at 8,500. Really strong ball striking toward the end of last year. T17 here at this event last year, so I think you're getting a mix of good form and a little bit of course history. And then I do like Trey Mullinax. I think he's going to be popular, but he really turned it on towards the end of last year, and he's one of those guys that tends to play his best in the weaker fields. I think he won the Barbasol and then kind of went on a little run after that. So Mullinax, Moore, and Dietrich are going to be my favorites.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement on this range. Certainly like Dietrich. I really like Moore. Course, like Mullinax is the type of guy that plays courses in the weaker fields a little bit better. You could throw Seamus Power in this mix as well. Like, remember, for a time, for like a 2-month stretch, Seamus Power became like prime Tiger for a few, maybe a couple months. I don't know. It seemed like forever because I wasn't playing him during that stretch, and I think we kept talking about it on the show. And then he kept getting more and more expensive, and he kept getting more and more popular, and he kept doing better and better. But these are the types of events, man, that he can, he just shows up and gets an 8th place finish or something.
Hey, we were right eventually on Power. After 3 months, our fade finally worked.
Then once it started going downhill and he started getting cheaper, he started getting less owned. I hopped aboard, and that kind of kept going for a while. But he's going to he grades out well in our RotoGrinders projections. Especially on a point per dollar basis, and solid, low projected ownership as well. But I know in that range, I got to leave you your boy Kirk there at 8,200.
So I was kind of ready to fade Kirk this week. He rates out well for me, but didn't play great at the Fortinet and, kind of struggled towards the end of last season. But then you brought up the fact that he's won here. When was it? 2011?
11 years ago. Course history.
I got to play him again now. I typically like him on the shorter courses, but he's just been so consistent off the tee that, he's in play for me at 82. And one other note on Seamus Power. So I did a little comp thing in my model. Guys that play the best on easy par 72s, and he's number 1 in the field. So
no doubt.
For what that's worth, Seamus Power.
That would have been my first guess. Totally. It really would have been my first guess in this field on easy par 72s. He's vaulting up my leader, my wish list this week for sure. And I think there's lots of interesting GPP plays in this range. I mean, you mentioned Mullinax, we talked about Kirk, Power, and Woodland and Clark are always decent upside options as well.
Yeah, they definitely both fit the bomber narrative, and Clark, his 2 strengths are putting and hitting it far. So yeah, I don't mind that. Their course histories aren't great, but this is one of the events where course history really doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful if it's there, but I certainly don't think it's mandatory by any means to be prioritizing course history as a must-have for this tournament. So, anything else above 8K?
I don't think so. I've seen a lot of people talk up Hadwin, but I'm not. Or Sepp Straka. Straka rates out so poorly for me. I don't understand the price.
Yeah, that price is too much. I'm out on that. There's too many other good options in this range, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, we're pretty much in lockstep then on that range. Let's go ahead and go to the kind of 7.5 to 7.9K range. Who are you looking at in there?
This is kind of a dead range for me. I do like Alex Smalley, a guy that we play always. Me and you always seem to talk him up, and he's just so consistent. He's one of those guys that's good off the tee, good with his irons, makes a lot of birdies. The short game is a little suspect, but T31 here last year. When you get down in this range, you don't need a guy that checks all the boxes because there's no such thing as that. So I don't mind taking the ball strikers down here. Just names that are interesting. Justin Suh, getting back on him. Did win the Korn Ferry Tour Championship and missed the cut of the Fortinet, but it wasn't by much. So I'll go back to him. I can't do Brendan Steele again. That was pretty bad at the Fortinet. That was like his favorite event, and he was almost dead last at that. But Dean Burmeister, the Mista lady, as Pat Mayo likes to call him. I think he's interesting. He's one of those guys that's very long off the tee from the European Tour. I think he could be interesting since not a lot of people probably know him.
I think the Justin Suh conversation this week is one of the more important ones to have, because we all talk about these guys that they just got their PGA Tour card. So they're getting going on the PGA Tour for the first time. And so we talked about Suh at the Fortinet. We talked about Montgomery. And they were both fairly popular, and they were around the same price. And they were both owned in like the mid-teens or whatever in the first event of their, full-time PGA Tour card holding careers. And then one event, Montgomery finishes third, Suh misses the cut, and now Montgomery is 9,600 and he's 25% owned, and we like him. Yeah. And Suh is 7,700 and he's 9% owned. Now I guarantee you that the entire career trajectory of these two guys should not be defined by one PGA Tour start. Now, if this happens 6, 7, or 8 times in a row, we're probably concerned. But I'm not going to write this guy off after one bad tournament. So we're getting him at a reasonable price again. We're getting him at low ownership. Everyone's going back to Montgomery. I think you can certainly play Justin Suh again this week. He's definitely my favorite, especially because, like you mentioned, this is a bit dead zone. Tough to trust Steele. It's not like Rye, Putnam, Todd. It's not like those guys are the upside kind of guys that you love to take in birdie fests. Todd, you prefer on more of a plotter's course. Burmeister, certainly interesting for tournaments as well. But with this being a bit of a dead zone, Justin Suh, definitely the guy I'm going back to in GPPs this week. Any interest in Justin Lower? He had a good performance at the Fortinet as well.
He has been playing very well. A couple top 10s back-to-back, 9th and 4th. I don't really know a lot about him. He is a good putter, it looks like. Ball striking, not so much. So, yeah, I don't mind him. But, yeah, great take by you. Sometimes you just got to zoom out. 2K difference and massive ownership difference for guys that we thought of very similarly 2 weeks ago. And this is why I'm still, beating the Norman Jong, the Panda, the drum. Because we've only seen like 80 events from him, He's going to get there eventually.
It just takes time. It just takes time. He's coming. He's still got time. All right. Let's see. As we head down to the bottom part of the 7K range, a couple of interesting names in here. I don't know how you can't root for Benny On, he was a pretty good player on the PGA Tour for a while, and then lost his tour card because, as always, he struggles with the putter, and to his credit, he embraces that on Twitter. And then he lost his card. He battled back. He got it. He had a really strong season on the Korn Ferry Tour, got his card back, top 5 finish at the Fortinet. He was in the top quarter of the field in putting. And if his putter's back around, he's going to strike the ball well. I like him. Adam Svenson finished the last season with cuts made in 11 of his last 12 starts. I like him. I think those two guys at 7,400 are certainly interesting. And given the fact that we are taping this live and my microphone tends to cut out once a show, I'm betting that's going to happen right at 8 o'clock Central Time, which is in 24 seconds. So I am going to cede the floor to you while my microphone mutes so that I can catch it and you can talk about the rest of the 7K range on your side.
Yeah, you mentioned Benny On being an easy guy to root for. He's always been a fan favorite, especially DFS favorite. And he was actually a member of the President's Cup, which is wild to have him lose his tour card, have to get it back. Played well at the Fortinet, so I'll be on him for sure. I like Stefan Jaeger at 7,200 a lot. Talk about a guy that makes a ton of birdies. He was really struggling off the tee, but he figured it out toward the end of last season. He's gained at least 4 strokes on approach in 5 of his last 11 events. So the irons have been really good coming in, makes a ton of birdies. I think he, is very interesting. And then at the very bottom at 7,000, we have Lee Hodges, who went to the University of Alabama, showed some really good ball striking toward the end of last season. And so it's basically a home game for him. It's like a 2-hour drive. He did make the cut here last year. And I think that's really interesting at that price point. I'll go back to Patrick Rogers because I always go back to Patrick Rogers. I don't mind playing a little Marty Dow. I think he's Zay Chang Dow on DraftKings. He's been playing some good golf on the Korn Ferry Tour, so I like him a little bit. And that's probably it for me. Who are the guys you mentioned?
So my mic did mute. Did I come back normal or am I robo voice?
No, you're good.
All right. We didn't come back robo voice. Mic muted at 8 o'clock on the nose. See, I'm starting to defeat the beast. I am out thinking the microphone beast that tends to grab me while I'm talking. So seeded the floor at the right time. I mentioned Svenson and Benny on in that 7,400 range.
Yeah, hard not to like Svenson. For whatever reason, he's gotten the narrative that he's a bad putter, but he's actually an awesome putter. For whatever reason, everybody just assumes that he's a bad putter. But yeah, very good putter.
All right. Otherwise, I agree with some of those names that you mentioned there, though I was busy unmuting and remuting my mic to make sure I was good. But this is a range where I think you can certainly round out your lineups. I know you mentioned Jaeger there. Davis Thompson, did you mention him? And or if not, do you have a take on him?
I didn't mention him. Give me your take.
I don't know. He was, if we go back 6 months, he was one of those guys that was highly heralded, was going to be one of the next up and coming guys. And then I can't remember whether how was he playing events like 6 months ago? Was he getting sponsor invites?
Yeah, he was like one of the top amateurs.
Yeah, I think he was there getting sponsor invites to some events. Well, he's got his card and he started with a 9th place finish at the Fortinet. Just a forgotten guy. I mean, if his ownership starts to spike, I don't think it's an absolute must play by any means, but 7,200 single digit ownership. I think I'll sprinkle him into my tournament builds.
Yeah, I like it. Strong pedigree, and he did play here last year, 235. So
there you go. Probably one of the events that I was thinking of. So
yeah,
definitely a good range to find some guys to round out your lineups. I mean, you've got guys that have shown some form down here in the past, maybe not as consistent, but Eckroat's been popular at times. CT Pan's been popular at times. That's a lot of names in that kind of 7 to 7,000 range. And part of that is because, once again, the sub 7K options are pretty tough to stomach. Anything you find sticking out down there, looks like our projections like Smotherman a good bit. Callum Tarrant, as I've played him a little bit in the recent months. Those are a couple that stood out to me.
Not really. I don't think during the swing season, I usually don't do the full 150 build. I'll probably make 1 or 2 lineups. And because of that, I'm not going to be touching anybody in the 6Ks. But the guys that rate out well, Nate Lashley, Adam Long, Callum Tarrant has been a pretty good player the last few months, but nothing that I'm itching to play.
Yeah, there's just not a lot down here. You got so many options there in that low part of the 7K range. These fields in the swing season are so weak at the bottom that it's just tough. I mean, you scroll through it, and there's, you scroll through it in our lineup HQ. There's a lot of red in the cut probabilities. I think the projection's probably a little off on Eric Barnes at 6,300. So don't go grabbing him just based on that. We'll get that projection updated as well, along with Munoz being removed. But stick in the lower end of that 7K range. There's not, as you mentioned, not a ton to spend up for at the top. So it's not like you need to be reaching for all these guys to round out your rosters. It simply isn't necessary to get, a bunch of 6K punts, because you're not paying up for 11K, 11 golfers. So anything else you think we need to pass along here?
The guy that breaks the projections with the different names, Carl Yuan. I think we have him as Yechen Wan. He's been playing some good golf too. Pretty high cut rate on the Korn Ferry Tour. 6,900 if you want a guy down there. He might be my favorite sub 7K guy.
All right. So with that, I think we have probably covered it as good as we can for this week. Again, the Sanderson Farms Championship, Country Club of Jackson. If you like Birdie Fest, this is the tournament for you. And we appreciate you checking us out. We'll be back next week for the Shriners Children's Open. That's in Vegas. Another fun tournament. Usually get a stronger field for that one. So we will be back next week to break that down. Until then, best of luck in all your lineups, everybody. For Noto, for our producer, Devin, thanks to him for working hard behind the scenes for us. I am Justin, and enjoy the start of fall out there, everybody. We'll catch you back here next week. Have a good one.